You decide to move your hand, and your brain started getting ready half a second before you knew it. That's not a metaphor. In a laboratory in 1983, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet sat people down in front of a clock. Not a normal clock. A bright dot swept around its face once every 2.5 seconds. The instructions were simple. Press this button whenever you feel like it. Then tell me where the dot was at the exact moment you first became aware of wanting to press. Electrodes on the scalp watched the whole time. It sounds like nothing. You've made that kind of small, unforced choice 100 times today already, and not one of them felt mysterious. What the recordings showed, people are still arguing about. A slow rise of electrical activity, building in the motor areas, starting roughly 550 milliseconds before the finger moved, and the moment people reported deciding, about 200 milliseconds before. The brain got moving first, and awareness turned up late. 350 milliseconds late to a decision it believed it was making. Then it got worse. 25 years later, a team led by John Dylan Haynes slid people into a brain scanner and gave them a choice so small it barely counts as one. Left button or right button. Whenever you like. Then they trained a pattern classifier on the scanner data, watching the frontopolar cortex and the precuneus, two regions sitting well upstream of the hand. The classifier saw it coming, not half a second early, up to 10 seconds early before the person reported having chosen anything at all. Sit with that for a moment. 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, you can change your mind twice and feel yourself do it. You can rehearse the choice, talk yourself out of it, and land somewhere else entirely. And somewhere in a strip of tissue behind your forehead, the answer was already sitting there, readable, while you experienced yourself as undecided. The headlines wrote themselves. Free will is an illusion. Science has spoken. And if you've spent any time in this corner of the internet, you've probably absorbed some version of that as settled. Usually from a video that sounded a lot more certain than this one. 300 years before anyone could measure a brain, someone wrote down the answer. He ground lenses for a living in Amsterdam. His community had already thrown him out permanently for what he thought. And in the middle of a book laid out like a geometry textbook, he dropped a line that reads like a lab report from the future. Men think themselves free, he wrote, because they're conscious of their actions and ignorant of the causes by which those actions are determined. Read that again slowly, because it's doing something precise. He isn't saying your sense of freedom is a lie. He's saying it's a partial view. You get to watch the last few frames of a long film, the part where the intention surfaces and you move and you mistake those frames for the whole movie. You feel the wanting. You don't feel whatever built the wanting. Why that person and not the other one? Why that job still stings years later? Why the apology came out wrong? The reasons arrive dressed as your own free verdict, and they never show their work. So the lab confirmed the philosopher, and we can all go home. Except that isn't what happened. The lab doesn't say what you've been told it says. Here's the part that almost never survives the retelling. Libet didn't believe it either. The man who ran the experiment, who watched that slow electrical rise appear before his subjects felt a thing, did not conclude that free will was finished. He argued for something narrower and stranger, and he called it free won't. The idea went like this. Yes, the process starts without you. Your brain begins assembling the action while you're still, in the ordinary sense, minding your own business. But there's a gap between the moment awareness arrives at 200 milliseconds and the moment your finger actually moves. In that gap, Libet thought, you can veto. You don't author the impulse, you get a vote on whether it goes through. You know the feeling, even if you've never called it that. The hand that stops halfway to the thing it shouldn't pick up. The sentence you were already saying, abandoned in the middle. Plenty of researchers push back on the veto, and it's fair to call it unsettled. But notice what it does to the story. The most cited experiment against free will was published by a man who spent the rest of his career arguing it showed nothing of the kind. Now the number nobody quotes. Those scanner predictions, the ones reading your choice 10 seconds out, ran at about 60% accuracy. Pure guessing gets you 50. 60% is a real effect. It's genuinely above chance, and it tells us something is moving upstream of awareness. It's also nothing like the machine of popular imagination, the one that knows your future while you sit there flattering yourself. 10 percentage points over a coin flip. That's your mind reader. It gets more interesting. In 2012, Aaron Scherger and his colleagues published a reanalysis that goes after the readiness potential itself. Their argument, roughly: brain activity fluctuates constantly, noisily, all on its own. If you tell someone to act whenever they feel like it, they'll tend to act when that spontaneous activity happens to be drifting upward anyway. Now average all your trials, lined up on the moment of movement, and a rising curve appears in the data. That curve might be an artifact of the averaging, not a decision sitting there waiting to happen. Just noise, crossing a line. Something similar hangs over the scanner study. One published critique showed you can predict people's choices about as well from their previous choices, using no brain data whatsoever. If your last few presses are enough to guess your next one, then some of that mind reading was never mind reading, it was habit. None of this makes free will safe. It makes the famous evidence softer and a lot less quotable than the version that reached you. So does that give you your free will back? No. And this is where nearly every argument about this goes wrong. Two questions keep getting fused into one, and they are not the same question. The first question: where does conscious awareness enter a process that's already running? That's what these experiments measure, and they're good at it. The second question: is everything that happens the result of causes that came before it? That's a claim about how reality is assembled. No electrode answers it. A scanner can tell you when you noticed. It can't tell you whether the universe had options. Think of it this way: timing the moment you felt the train start moving tells you nothing about who laid the track. Both are real questions. Only one of them has a machine pointed at it. Then there's the scale problem, which anyone who's watched these studies get quoted should be suspicious of. They're built on button presses, left or right, now or in a moment. Choices engineered to be meaningless. Precisely so, nothing contaminates the measurement. Whether to leave the relationship, whether to say the true thing in the meeting, whether to forgive your father. Those unfold across weeks, and they run on memories and fears and reasons that no session in a scanner was designed to capture. Doubting that the button generalizes to the marriage isn't special pleading, it's reading the method. Spinoza never needed the scanner. That's the part worth taking with you, and it's why his argument hasn't aged. He wasn't making a prediction about neuroscience. He was making a claim about causes, and it runs like this: everything that happens follows from what came before it. You're part of nature, not a visitor holding a special exemption. So your wanting has a history, whether or not anyone can find that history on a screen. If Scherger turns out to be right, and the readiness potential really is noise, Spinoza's argument is untouched. If the scanner one day hits 99%, it's untouched then too. An empirical result can't refute a claim that was never empirical to begin with. That cuts both ways, and it's worth saying plainly. No experiment is going to hand you a proof of determinism either. Which brings us to the thing this gets confused with constantly. Determinism is not fatalism. Fatalism says nothing you do matters, so why bother? Spinoza says close to the opposite. Your effort is one of the causes. It sits inside the chain, doing work. The book you read at the right moment, the conversation that changed your mind, the habit you spent a year building, those are causes too, and they're yours. Understanding the machinery doesn't lift you out of it. It changes what the machinery does next. That's the difference that makes him worth your time. Stoicism tells you to accept what you can't control. Spinoza tells you why there was never anything else it could have been. Put your finger back on the button. The rise happens. Half a second or 10, and somewhere underneath, something assembles. Then you feel it as a choice, and you press. Here's what changes when you take that seriously. Not much on a Tuesday. You'll still deliberate, still weigh things, still care about getting it right. Understanding your hunger has never once stopped you from eating. What goes is a particular kind of torment. That endless audit of why you weren't better, as though some other version of you could have stepped outside your own history and picked differently. That version was never available. The one who showed up is the one who could. And it goes for everyone else too, which is harder and more useful. The person who wronged you was running on causes you can't see, exactly the way you are. You're not the author sitting outside the process, issuing instructions to a body. You're the process, briefly, remarkably aware of itself.